Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individual guests or creators and do not necessarily represent the views of their employers, business partners, affiliates, or advertisers. Any opinions, advice, or statements made on this podcast are not intended to be taken as fact or professional advice. Please consult a qualified professional before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.
Hi everybody, welcome to Untapped Azania. My name is Maureen, the even the queen, the even the princess, whichever one you prefer. Welcome to another episode. If you're new here, like, subscribe, let us know what you've been tapped into so we can tap into that as well. If you're returning, what have you been doing? Also, subscribe, let us know what you've been tapped into so we can tap into that as well. But I do not chill alone. I chill with the one and only
Mashudu.
How you doing, Mashudu?
I'm fresh and my fresh just get fresher.
What's the mood? What's the temperature, fam?
You know, hey, these diamonds, it's difficult with this weather, but they still growing greater than the pressure.
Hey, yo, I love that. We're not going to waste any time today, my dog. What have you been tapped into?
Is it Liberation Day? Is it what they called it with Trump's tariff plan? Yeah, that, I didn't go much into it, didn't have time.
Yeah.
But just off the bat, I was just thinking like, what's up with this man's, bro? And what's up with the peoples that are responsible for advising him? Because I personally, and maybe I might be wrong, but I just personally just look at the US right now and I don't see them as like that superpower that they've always been, like having this leverage over every other nation where they can just impose tariffs and every other country just conforms, you know? And in addition to that, on the same chat, just going off the back of Trump has been talking about closing the border. I mean, tariffs plus closing the border at the same time, because when you sort of impose tariffs, from my understanding, my very minuscule understanding, is that you're trying to empower your infant industries, or perhaps even thriving industries to thrive even more, you know, internally. Like you want things to work a lot domestically. Or in addition to that, it even encourages other corporations that are from other countries abroad to come and build in your country, like build factories and stuff, as opposed to like importing things in because it's too high. So say you're a fashion house, you're more inclined to build a fashion house in USA as opposed to like having it in Italy and then shipping clothes in because the tariffs are high.
Expensive.
But it's like, what incentive do people have to do that if you're still saying we don't want the people in? You know, and I'm also thinking about even these infant industries that they perhaps are trying to, and I'm thinking about this without going into the numbers and stuff, just going off of like, yo, this has been imposed. Even these infant industries, right? I feel like a lot of the unskilled labor, which is important for the production process, is not Americans. You know, I look at Americans, even to a greater extent, like South Africans, in that there are these jobs that we're just not willing to do. You know, that are
Very low class.
very low class. So that's how my understanding of just the American people is, like very, very lazy in terms of them like working on the unskilled labor type. So for me, my assessment of the whole thing is it's going to yield some unintended consequences.
Do you think they're unintended? Do you think he is intentionally just trying to start something? Because that's where my mind just went. Like, I feel like he's intentionally trying to start something. Because I don't think people are not advising him about all the things that everybody is thinking about. That's the things that everybody's, like, that's on top of everybody's head. I think people are telling him or telling his administration, whoever is in there. I just think it's some calculated move to shift a specific thing that he wants. I think it's I don't think he's just shooting like blindly. I think it's some calculated move, and there's something specifically that he wants. There's a specific desired result that he wants to get. And a lot of us are looking at it probably thinking, like, why would you do that? But it would probably eventually make sense. Like somebody, at some point, something will break to some point, and it will make sense why he's doing what he's doing, I think. Because for me, it doesn't make sense for you to be doing the things you're doing when you can actually see that the global world is actually just like, the global community is actually just like railing up against the US. And it's not just a recent thing. Like in the last couple of years, we've seen the rise of BRICS. Like people, like it's as a very strong force, by the way. So I wouldn't expect that specific reaction from him. I mean, if all these countries were to actually just like fight back with the same amount of strength, like all of them, everyone, the Pakistanis, the China, all of them that have been hit by terrorists, if they were just to strike back, like imagine the disaster it would be, you know? So I think there's a specific desired result that he's looking for, and he's calculating, and he's just pushing people to move a certain way, you know?
I kind of agree with that, because to a certain extent, I was even just thinking about how this is definitely his last term. You know, he can't run a third time. So it's also like, in as much as I can sabotage, I don't need to be around to fix it. It's not like when he ran the first time where he thought maybe he's gonna get a second term right after. You know, I think of that as well. So yeah, it's just a very
an
messy
interesting
situation.
It's an interesting thing. But also, I also think about legacy. I don't know if there's that is his last term. He does not have an incentive to do anything great, because if it fails, he doesn't have the responsibility to fix it. But it's also like, I think Trump would like the Trump name to continue for something, right? And that feeds into the specific desired result he's looking for. He probably wants that specific thing to be the thing that his legacy is remembered for, right? Probably not breaking things apart, but achieving a specific outcome that he's working on. So it would make sense for that to happen. So
Interesting.
that's kind of where I am. Anyway, what else, my dog?
I've also just been thinking about tokenization. So I came across a piece that was written like a while ago by. Did you ever watch the GameStop saga on Netflix?
No.
Did you ever hear about the whole GMC GameStop thing when young degenerates came together to basically liquidate like big hedge funds? So these kids had like a subgroup on Reddit, and you know how hedge funds need to publicly state, yo, these are the companies we long on, these are the companies we're short on. And GameStop, AMC as well are traditionally like big brands that are well respected and kids love in like the gaming space. And this hedge fund shorted GameStop stock. So they bet on it dropping, falling apart. So those kids went long. And it was like, and they were doing it ironically through a new platform at the time called Robinhood. And you know how Robinhood also just the whole. So
That's
I say that. So the GameStop saga was on that, but I was bringing up the GameStop saga because it had a lot to do with Robinhood. And the piece I read recently was by the founder of Robinhood, Vlad Tenev. And he wrote a piece that he published on the Washington Post that was on a lot of things, but specifically at the core of it was tokenization, and tokenization in the context of private companies.
And no doubt Robinhood has democratized both crypto and stock trading with its easy-to-use platform and free no-commission trades. But now CEO Vlad Tenev wants to do more. Tenev wants to use crypto to kick open the doors of investing in companies before they go public, something currently reserved only for higher net worth individuals. In an op-ed today in the Washington Post entitled, "An Investing Revolution is Coming, the U.S. Isn't Ready for It," he writes, quote, "The current wealth-based accreditation requirements for private investments are nonsensical and anachronistic. we should start thinking of crypto in a different way, as a technology that enables a new era of ultra-inclusive and customizable investing fit for this century. The world is tokenizing, and the United States should not get left behind. Vlad Tenev, the author of that op-ed, joins me now in a Fox Business exclusive. Vlad, how do you envision crypto as the vehicle for regular retail investors who have waited and wanted to buy shares in pre-IPO companies, but they haven't been able to?
Yeah, thank you for having me, by the way. Always great to be here. I think there's a big problem, which is that if you're a retail investor right now and you want to invest in AI, and it's very, very clear that they do, judging by the market activity yesterday and the overnight on Sunday, you don't have too many options. OpenAI is a private company, over 150 billion valuation. It's only available to select few insiders. And it's not like it was in the 80s where companies could go public at small valuations. The IPO process has gotten cumbersome. Only the biggest companies can do it. And that limits opportunities and upside to retail investors. And so I think that we're in a bit of a strange place when highly speculative assets are free for retail to invest in, but high quality, productive technology startups that are generating significant revenue are off limits. And I think that we now have an administration that's crypto friendly and retail friendly, and we see an opportunity to fix this major problem.
So you remember the time I spoke about the CEO of the biggest alternative asset manager saying that most companies are private, and also just talking about the Cantillon effect where the benefits first benefit most.
You're close to it.
Yeah, like most companies being private means that for other people, when those companies go public and that's when they can start investing in the company, it's sort of too late. You know? It's not always too late because companies can go public and still grow quite significantly over the years. But the ones that benefit most are the people that literally invested in the companies before they did their initial public offering. So what he wants to basically create is a product that's like a tokenized product that gives people opportunities to invest in private companies. So like OpenAI, SpaceX, and because they're all private, but they're quite big and people have a clear understanding of like their use case. So that for me was very interesting. I feel like it also feeds into the same conversation we're having about the Aeon's exchanges of this world that are sort of democratizing access for the layman, democratizing access for the individuals that don't really have that much access to like grow a very small amount of money into like substantial amounts. So yeah, that was something else that I was sort of a bit tapped into and just thinking about. Yeah, but also just how interesting the concept of tokenization is. Yeah, there's this also institution, they got liquidated, which pissed me off because I took part in a competition, right?
Yeah.
Like just before the company got liquidated. So it's called Wirecard. I don't know if you know about the Wirecard saga. You should read about it from like a legal standpoint. It will be very interesting for you. But I took part in a Wirecard competition and my contribution was on tokenizing remittances. And I even got a certificate for it, but I didn't even post it or
Because
anything.
you're like,
Yeah, literally after just before I got my certificate was shipped to the country, I like the whole saga started. It's like a Steinhoff type equivalent. Like, so yeah. So tokenization has always been something interesting in like just creating something little from something alternative. So like from like things that perhaps from like the actual context, there's like a data limitation standpoint, and then you tokenize it and just make it accessible. and cheap and also secure.
Makes sense.
On the blockchain. So yeah.
Makes sense. It sounds a lot like Aeon's exchange, and we spoke a little bit about it. It does sound very similar.
Yeah, for me, even in as much as the Aeons don't publicly say, hey, we're tokenizing, I feel like it's very much tokenization. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Anything else, my dog?
No, what have you been tapped into?
Okay, a lot. But I think I'll just speak about like this past couple of weeks. So I've been on road trips this past couple of weeks. I did a wedding in KZN. A friend of mine got married. And then I did an impromptu trip to George like last week, which was beautiful. But like for both those trips, right, I made a few observations, which was so interesting. Like the first trip, the KZN trip, was so eye-opening in that, okay, just the drive from here to KZN is so beautiful. Like I was in Nongoma and it's like deep rural KZN, but it's beautiful. And the landscape, it's beautiful, right? The wedding, fam. Like I even called my mom after the wedding. I was like, we're playing with vendor weddings. We are not doing weddings the way weddings are supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Because
It was out of this world.
Right, it was out of this world. Like it opened me up to so much. And the wedding was done at home, right? It was umembe, so it was done at home. But I realized like a lot of the formalities are done outside. Like it's all the traditional dances, the exchange of gifts, the whole gifting of money and everything. It was done outside, right? Outside the yard. But the view of that, like if I could show you pictures of what that looks like.
I saw your post.
It looks
was
like
fire.
It looks like somebody booked out like an entire farm and was like, this way we're gonna host and that was so like interesting for me to think about, because if you think about Joburg, for you to host something like that, you would need so much space and you would have to pay so much money for that. So it's like I think about like how difficult it is to practice culture in the city, and culture isn't what your tribe traditionally like practices. Like it's so difficult and it's so expensive. It's almost like you're incentivized to keep everything small and to keep communities small, keep spaces small. And you know how I feel about community. You know how I feel about like building an essence of togetherness. And I felt like KZN had that wedding had that. Like that wedding had community. That wedding had a sense of belonging. Even I was coming from all the way. Like I felt like, yeah, even me, I belong in this. Like, you know what Shaka Ilembe is like, how it looks. It felt like that, but maybe not really, because Shaka is obviously dramatized and made bigger. But it almost felt like these people are so true to their self. Like they're so close to what they used to do back in the day that like it's so refreshing. It makes you feel like, okay, we're not doing as much. I was like, when I get married at some point in my life,
You're gonna take it all the way.
I'm gonna take it all the way for this specific purpose. I'll call, but even if I can't really dance like the traditional dances that well, but I'll probably just get people to do it. Just to
but
make
I mean,
it
like,
that
if
even
it's your
dramatic.
wedding, I don't think it would take you that much time to actually get it right.
Maybe.
You know?
But it's
Where there's a will, there's a way. I feel like you can practice.
we don't know him, but that's what I thought about. But with the George trip, right? It was impromptu. Went with a couple of my friends. What struck me was just like, and I've done the garden route a couple of times with family, right? And this time around, when I did it, it was a little bit different. I don't know if it was because I was doing it with friends. I had a new perspective. Usually when you're driving on the garden routes, you see the windmills and they're flowing really well. And it's like so beautiful. You're like, oh, look at us develop renewable energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this time around, I actually was realizing that like South Africa was structurally built the same way, right? Like communities are built the same way in that where I come from, Makado, Louis Trichat, Chitandani, however you define that place, because there's a whole thing about it, is like there's a small town, there's a township, there's a village close by, and then there's there's a church, there's an Engia church, there's a Roman Catholic church.
Where I was living in my final year undergrad, right? There was this guy that studied politics. He was doing his master's, right? And I was always, when someone says, yo, I'm doing my master's, I was always interested in asking them, yo, like, what's your thesis on?
Yeah.
And that, he came from Klerksdorp, but his thesis was on, so like, he had no context of where I came from, right?
Yeah.
His thesis was on spatial planning. Like, it was so much longer, but at the core of it, it was on spatial planning. And he literally said what you said. He's like, and apartheid spatial planning, to be more specific. He's like, the apartheid spatial planning is you've got a town, and then the town will have a suburb, and then the suburb will have other growing, perhaps
developing
areas close to that suburb. And then you'll have an affluent area, so like a tycoon type area. And then you'll have another suburb that's sort of very close to like the business region, so like the CBD. And then outside, like very close to that region, you have the industrial area. Very close to the industrial area, you'll have a cemetery. And then outside the cemetery is where you're going to be, like, that's the road towards like a village or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the business district, so perhaps the suburb that's close to the business district is a location. So that's primarily for majority of the people that work in like that do low skilled labor. So like your domestic workers, your gardeners, your cleaners.
which is
Yeah, you get me, like Chikota in our context.
Yeah.
So it was like, bro, like, and he, like, when he was explaining this, I was just so dumbfounded because I was just like, damn, like, that's literally the town I come from. And when you see these pictures of all these different towns, there are all these pages, man, that will from time to time post a picture of a town in South Africa that you've never heard of. And you're just like, damn, that looks like,
the same.
Yeah, it looks like that road going up my high school.
It looks the same.
Yeah.
It looks even the shops that are there. There's a KFC, there's a Steers, there's a garage. They look exactly the same. But in all of these spaces, right, whichever one you go to, where the black people are, that's where struggle is.
Yeah.
That's where poverty is. That's where pain is. It's like, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah, dude, it's like,
that,
but it also goes back to like, it's like, yo, apartheid in our context just ended, but it's like what it came with, all the limitations that exist because of it, there was
nothing that, like, structurally, if you just look at it, we're still the same. Like, the way you've just described how communities are built, they're still built that way. So the people that are supposed to have access to the town much easier don't have access to the town much easier. It's people that have money that have access to like the suburban spaces, that have access to the town, which is crazy. And the way it's structured is like the people that suffer, right? They are spaced in such a way that they're close enough, but not close. Like just close enough to serve the people that to make the people that stay in those spaces comfortable, but not close enough for them to enjoy those spaces as well, you know? And that frustrated me.
Kind of also think about the whole concept of eat the rich. Like when push comes to shove, if push comes to shove, like the people of Alex are right there by Sandton. You get me? Like, because that's actually where we're going as a society. We're going to a place where, I mean, there's obviously, we're obviously not going to have a middle class. We're going to have an affluent class and we're going to have the poor, right? But then how will that manifest as it grows and grows and grows? Right? Like,
yo, bruh, like,
because it's happening. It's right in front of us.
It's dangerous because I don't see, and maybe it's because I haven't tried to look for this stuff, but I can't see how structurally we're trying to solve that problem. You get me? Like, how do you know how much planning you have to make so that every single town, like every town that people pass through as a gateway town, has the exact same structure? Like, you have to have planned this thing, and you have to be very strategic in where the town is. At what point, every 300 kilometers, you are stopping somewhere. You're stopping Bloemfontein, Colesberg, somewhere for you to find a similar town. What equivalent do we have right now that's trying to be structurally so well thought of like that? You know? And what you're saying is a result of the fact that we haven't had a plan before. I don't know if we have now, but it doesn't look like we have. And where we're going is a very dangerous place because we're not addressing structurally. And it's in the core of this thing. It's like structurally, you're not fixing the problem. And it's even worse when like we are so detached. Like I was even thinking that, Neti, I'm so detached from the reality of, I'm only realizing it now when I'm driving through these towns and I'm traveling, that like, damn, like, we struggle everywhere we are in this country. Like, where there's pain, it's us. And we're desensitized from that. If you come from the town that I come from. Even if, let's just say you come from Venda, bruh. There aren't shacks in Venda. There's huts, there's traditional Venda houses. Mara, there isn't communities where
like
you
Rondeville's,
like Rondeville's, you won't find communities where it's just shacks. There will be RDPs and whatever, but not just shacks. But like, if you move from that environment, right? I come from that environment and I come to the city. I studied at Tax, it's Hatfield. It's very close knit. I move to Joburg and I work in this suburban areas, these high affluent spaces, right? I don't have as much reality as a person who lives in Alex. Like, I don't have that picture so drawn out to me in a vivid way than a person who lives in Alex, right? Even though I might come from poverty in Dicheva Venda, my poverty does not look the same as somebody who lives in Alex, because I just want to finish this. When I'm in Venda, right? If I'm hungry, there'll be fruits in the backyard. There's space enough for trees to be there. There's space enough to garden for me to actually feed myself. When you're in Alex, bruh, where do you garden there? So your hunger is very different from somebody who's from Venda or from...
So you're even incentivized to be in the Squid Game that we spoke about. Like,
look for the little...
And fight
fight
with the person that's closest to you, you know? And... I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. You wanted to say something and I was like,
so crazy.
But yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking two things. Let me just say the second thing I was thinking that made me think of. You remember that Carte Blanche episode in the Northern Cape where they were talking about the sewage?
Yes.
It makes me, I think that's very, very in line with what you're saying, because it also speaks to the spatial planning that even these small towns, these cities, they're oversaturated now because they were sort of created for a very small group of individuals.
Right.
So when you have a sewage problem, it's not necessarily because of like incompetence. You can blame it on the incompetence of the government, but sometimes we need to look back and say, yo, most of these, like, we just transitioned into a system where now we're trying to cater for, say, 60 million people in the modern day context. But for the apartheid government, they were catering for way less than a quarter of that population. So yeah, it's crazy. Like I was watching this interview this one time, and it was black dudes, bro, and they were having so like dumb conversations. And because they were having conversations about like the electricity problems that we're facing in South Africa, but they were having them at a very, very low level. Like they weren't confronting like this, like the dynamics to do with our spatial planning and the structural barriers that exist, right? And for me, it was baffling. And I knew that these are, not that they are pick-me's, probably they're saying what is their own perspective, but I knew what they're doing is going to entice like the white population. It was, I love going into comment section because I can already, like, I'll have a sentiment, I'll have a view on like, okay, this sort of conversation is going to entice this person. And when I go in, it's always interesting when what I thought would happen doesn't happen, but it's also even more interesting when I thought would happen happens. So I literally went into the comment section and there were people that were talking about, yes, you guys are so right. I remember living in, I can't remember the specific area in Pretoria when I was growing up, and in my entire life, growing up in, I think, the 70s, and in my entire life, I only experienced an electricity cut once. Right? And I'm just thinking to myself, bro, there were people that were probably 15 kilometers from where you were living, white boy, that were using candles.
Paraffin stoves.
You get me? So the extent
people
to
were
which...
actually dying from burning coal so that they can keep themselves
warm. The extent to which like things have improved to this day where people actually have access to electricity in the villages, in the townships, there's progress in that regard. Like we need to be... Honestly, it's like we could be doing so much better, and corruption isn't good, but there's so much more progress. Like in comparison to like what was happening with like the apartheid government and the spatial planning.
I mean, we're definitely not where we want to be, and there's been work that was done that's impressive. Like there's a lot of work that has been done to actually help our people. Like there's so many things that the government has helped. But I think, bro, like we're not angry enough about how many black people live in poverty. Like our politicians are not mad enough with that, because there is no way you could be driving around in a G63, bruh, when there's people that are literally like this winter, you see, winter is coming up, that are gonna be so cold that they don't even know what to do with themselves because they're living in matchbox houses. It does not make sense to me. And for it to be continuing, my bro, like it shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be a thing that structurally we're still seeing that like if you go to a township, everywhere else in this country, you're seeing black people. And I'm not saying that I want to see white people there or any other race. All I'm just saying is
that shouldn't exist.
That shouldn't exist.
Like what Lauren Hill says, like we're already smart enough as a society to eradicate poverty. We just don't want to.
Yeah.
And
the world is filled with way too many bright people for us to still have the problems that we have in the world. It's going to be our shame, you know what I mean, that we don't sit together and create people who invest with thought and consideration and care to solve the world's problems. If we can do all these things that we do digitally, technologically, economically, we can feed people, we can educate people through poverty. We can solve the problems of poverty. Poverty isn't even something that should exist in this world at this point. But we have the ability now to see the resistance, acknowledge it for what it is, and go beyond it and go past it. We have the answers. We have so many of the answers. We have the technology. We have the wealth. We just have to be willing to share it. And in order for us to do that, we have to do the work in and on ourselves so that we can be conduits of change and improvement for other people.
And what you were saying about the G-Wagon thing made me think of like the post I shared recently on Insta with Finn Staples, with the Black Excellence is... It was something by 19 Keys, but he said something.
It's a scam that replaced Black Power.
Black Excellence is a scam that replaced Black Power, yes.
My homie reached out to me after I reposted something from 19 Keys the other day saying Black Excellence is the scam that replaced Black Power. He said, what's wrong with Black Excellence? I guess to some that might be a controversial statement because we've been so deeply indoctrinated into the idea of Black exceptionalism that we think one athlete, one actor, one president, one rapper represents meaningful progress for Black people as a whole. But the studies show that Black median wealth will reach zero by the year 2053 if the current trends continue. Millions of us live in prison slave camps making lids for Starbucks cups for like 50 cents a day. The hood is as fucked up as it's ever been. But we got more millionaires than ever before. That shit is a scam. I think that's also the reason why we don't unify or strike and weaponize our labor in any of the industries that we dominate. The NBA, the NFL, the music industry. Because so rarely is one of us more than one step removed from poverty, so nobody's willing to risk it. We know we're being exploited by streaming. We make up all the labor and none of the ownership of the sports teams. Shit, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying we shouldn't strive for excellence as a people or as individuals, but we cannot make the mistake of confusing one of us getting out the hood with the progress of the group. We also have to look at the success of individuals that's achieved to the detriment of the masses. We be celebrating shit just cause a nigga got some money. It don't matter who the fuck had to die. Like if niggas run around making a bag off the prison industrial complex, are we cheering that shit on?
And I think that speaks volumes because it speaks to the fact that we're so obsessed with, and we've been made obsessed. And I think it's this thing that psychologically we don't recognize, but we've been made to just accept the fact that you're going to have a few success stories. Like you're gonna have 4 people that represent you in an industry, and then at most, sometimes even 2, sometimes even just
and
1.
And that's okay.
And you should accept it. And that's our Black
so
success.
Frustrating. That's so frustrating. Because we live in South Africa. Majority of the people that live in this country are Black.
Yes.
Why is it that like we are singling out 1 or 2 people that are success stories and putting them on a pedestal? Actually,
like people are so obsessed with even saying, I'm the first Black, I'm the only Black, like for me, that's not a badge of honor. You know, it's like it's great that you did it, but it's like it should make you shriek. I should be feeling like not in my name. Yeah. Like, dude, where's Maureen? Dog, she's so great. But like, why isn't she here as well?
Complex. But you're right. You're right, dog. You're right. You're right. I have nothing else to say. But anyway, on top of that, there's a book that I would like to get you to read. If you can get this book, The Untapped Community, please get your hands on it. It's called Some of My Best Friends Are White. And it's like a very funny take in terms of like just South Africans and how we live and how culturally the things we do, can be very funny, even though we live in a space that's not as funny as it should be. But anyway.
On the books chat, all black men should read bell hooks. Because I feel like it's not, it's already a conversation that I feel like black women understand, and it's also because I feel like to a certain extent, bell hooks literature is at face value designed for the for feminists, you know. But I feel like all black men should read bell hooks if you want to grow, if you want to get a perspective that will help you understand things and just the dynamics of the world we're navigating better as a black man, and just like just grow in power, you know, like what 19 Keys is saying when he says black excellence replace black power. Like I feel like black bell hooks type literature will take you back as a black man to the thinking of what black power actually constitutes in the African or just the black context. You know, I don't know if we have any international viewers, but like the black context, you know, like
bell hooks.
Yeah, just to read bell hooks if you're a black guy and
Tony
you want a book
Harrison.
recommendation from MASH. I've never recommended any book, but like
here's the first one.
read. You can start anywhere. Like read anything by bell hooks, and her books are so succinct. Like she doesn't have long books. She does.
Yeah.
It's not a novel, bro. Like she has books that are less than 200 pages. So even if you're not that much a reader, you can do 10 pages a day and you'll be getting crazy wisdom. Like, please.
Right. I don't think we have enough time to get into the question of the week. So this will be, why are you looking at, do you want to get
ask me. Just ask me real
Should
quick.
I ask you?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could have a conversation with one struggle hero, who would it be?
I mean, I was just talking about bell hooks now. So I think it would be bell hooks.
Yes.
I think it would be bell hooks. But also Jesus, bro. I feel like Jesus was very much a struggle hero.
Nah.
And I would love to hear his views, because Jesus didn't live at a time when Christianity existed. It existed because of him. So I'd like to also hear his views on Christianity.
Jesus wasn't Christian.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, like the struggles of the modern day, it would be nice to hear Jesus' view.
Okay, with that said, peace
Peace out
time
for
for
the
the
peace
peace out.